Jessica Stacks, a 28-year-old woman from New Albany, Mississippi, vanished on New Year's Day in 2021 under circumstances that defy easy explanation. On the morning of January 1st, 2021, surveillance footage captured Jessica and her boyfriend, Jerry Wayne Baggett, at the West Union Quick Stop gas station. They were towing a small, motorless boat borrowed from a friend, Willie Stinson. Notably, Jessica left her phone with Stinson, claiming they would coordinate a pickup later, a decision that would complicate efforts to trace her movements. Baggett later told authorities the couple launched the boat into the rain-swollen Little Tallahatchie River near County Road 46. The river's current was dangerously fast due to recent storms, and the boat lacked oars or a motor. Baggett claimed they used a shovel to steer. According to his account, Jessica grew anxious as water flooded the vessel and asked to exit approximately 2 miles downstream. He alleged she began walking north through flooded fields toward Highway 30, but this version of events would later unravel under scrutiny. Baggett waited over 12 hours to report Jessica missing, notifying authorities at 10:15 p.m. that night. He claimed he retrieved the boat downstream, called for a ride, and only later realized Jessica was unaccounted for. The delay raised immediate red flags, particularly as search teams mobilized to scour the area. A massive operation ensued, involving helicopters, thermal drones, cadaver dogs, and over 30 members of the National Search and Rescue Association. Investigators recovered a single green rubber boot with the top cut off, matching Baggett's pre-search statement about Jessica modifying her footwear. They also found a coat, gloves, and footprints leading into a flooded farmer's field. A tree with chopped limbs and a 3-inch breaker fuse lodged in its crevice was documented, though its relevance remains unexplained. Despite weeks of searching, no body or conclusive evidence of foul play surfaced. The case took a darker turn as Baggett's story shifted over time. Initially, he insisted Jessica was with him on the boat. By 2023, however, he reversed his account, claiming he had not seen her that day and casting doubt on the entire premise of the boat trip, stating neither he nor Jessica could swim. Jessica's family vehemently disputes his narrative, arguing the excursion made little sense given the river's treacherous conditions and the couple's lack of boating experience. Critics, including Jessica's mother, have accused law enforcement of failing to adequately scrutinize Baggett. Theories about Jessica's fate range from accidental drowning to an intentional slaying. Personally, I think it's a really bad sign when a person of interest in a case has a constantly evolving story that can't be squared with previous iterations under any circumstances. As of 2025, the Union County Sheriff's Office maintains an open investigation, but acknowledges a lack of evidence to pursue charges. Brianna Alexandra Maitland, a 17-year-old from Montgomery, Vermont, vanished on March 19, 2004, after finishing her shift as a dishwasher at the Black Lantern Inn. Last seen driving her green Oldsmobile, Brianna never reached the friend's home where she was supposed to be staying that night. The next day, her car was discovered backed into the side of an abandoned farmhouse, known locally as the Old Dutchburn House, approximately 1 mile from the restaurant. The vehicle's rear end was lodged into the structure with personal items, including her uncashed paychecks, wallet, and contact lenses, left inside. The driver's door was open, and scattered belongings suggested a struggle or hurried exit. Brianna's disappearance was not immediately treated as suspicious. Law enforcement initially assumed the car had been abandoned by a drunk driver and towed it without a thorough forensic examination. It wasn't until days later, after her family reported her missing, that the connection to the abandoned vehicle was made. This delay hindered early investigative efforts, as potential evidence may have been lost or contaminated. Notably, even once she was reported missing, and the connection to the car was made apparent, The Vermont State Police considered Maitland as a likely runaway and were skeptical of foul play. Brianna's parents, Bruce and Kelly Maitland, emphasized that her behavior in the days leading up to her disappearance was unremarkable. She had celebrated passing her GED exam with her mother hours before vanishing, discussing plans for college and a weekend trip. Multiple theories have been explored in relation to her case. Weeks before her disappearance, she attended a party where she was violently assaulted by a former friend, leaving her with a concussion. While charges were filed, the case was dropped after she vanished. Rumors swirled about her potential entanglement with local substance dealers, including Ramon Ryans and Nathaniel Jackson, whose home was raided in 2004. An anonymous affidavit alleged Brianna was slain over a substance debt and disposed of on a pig farm. And yeah, the details are really gruesome, so I'm going to let you use your imagination on that one. Notably, Vermont's proximity to Canada fueled speculation she was trafficked, though no evidence supports this. In 2022, Vermont State Police identified a DNA sample collected near Brianna's car using advanced genetic genealogy. The DNA matched one of 11 persons of interest interviewed over the years, but investigators lacked sufficient evidence to name a suspect or make an arrest. On the 20th anniversary of her disappearance in 2024, the FBI announced a $40,000 reward for information leading to Brianna's recovery. The offering of this reward 20 years later has led to speculation that the FBI knows that someone not directly involved in her disappearance knows who did it. The Vermont State Police have reiterated that the investigation remains active, with weekly tips still arriving, though many rehash old leads. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here with a reminder to hit that notification bell and share this video on social media and with your friends and family. It's because people like you share my videos that I've been able to substantially increase the amount of time I spend working on my channel. On January 25, 2025, the quiet Dutch city of Assen became the epicenter of one of the most audacious art heists in recent history. And yes, I'm always a bit wary of covering current events, but any longtime viewers know that art heists are one of my personal interests. So here we are, hot off the presses, an absolutely off-the-wall art heist mystery involving explosives. Thieves targeted the Drents Museum, using explosives to blast their way into the building and steal 4 irreplaceable artifacts from Romania's Dacian civilization. Valued at €6 million, the stolen items, including a 2,500-year-old gold helmet, represent not just a financial loss, but a devastating blow to Romania's cultural identity. The thieves specifically targeted the Dacia Empire of Gold and Silver exhibition, a loaned collection from Romania's National History Museum in Bucharest. Among the stolen items were 3 gold bracelets and the helmet of Cotofanesti, all dating to the 5th century BC. The helmet, weighing 2.2 pounds of solid gold, is a masterpiece of ancient craftsmanship. Its intricate designs, featuring mythical creatures, sacrificial scenes, and large eyes meant to ward off evil, reflect a blend of Greek, Eurasian, and Thracian influences. Discovered in 1927 by children playing in a Romanian village, the helmet was initially used as a water bowl for livestock before its historical significance was recognized. The 3 spiral bracelets, meanwhile, originated from sacrificial pits in the ancient Dacian capital. Likely never worn for any significant period of time, these objects were likely offerings to deities, showcasing the Dacians' advanced metallurgical skills. At 3:45 a.m. on January 25th, an explosion shattered the silence near the Drents Museum. CCTV footage captured 3 hooded figures using a crowbar and explosives to breach a side door, triggering a flash of light and smoke that obscured the cameras. Once inside, the thieves smashed display cases and fled within minutes, leaving behind a sledgehammer later found in a nearby ditch. The museum's lack of nighttime security guards, a cost-saving measure, allowed the thieves to operate unimpeded. Their escape route involved a stolen gray Volkswagen Golf, which was found burning on a road 4 miles from the museum. Police believe the perpetrators switched vehicles to evade detection, possibly fleeing toward Germany. Dutch authorities, working with Interpol, believe that the suspects may be from North Holland and trace their movements via CCTV and license plate tracking. A team of 35 officers, including forensic experts and art crime specialists, pursued leads across multiple Dutch cities and considered links to Romanian criminal networks. There's several theories that have been put forth thus far. The most common is that they're simply professional art thieves attempting a high-value score at a poorly secured museum. The proper usage of explosives as well as the operational security measures taken suggest professionals rather than a group of amateurs. Romanian officials speculated the artifacts might be held for ransom or used as bargaining chips in illicit deals. They've publicly speculated that the thieves may threaten to melt the gold items down if their demands aren't granted. This would of course net the thieves well over 2 pounds of untraceable gold. However, the gold itself is only worth about $50,000 versus the priceless nature of the items in their present state. Others have suggested it's a political statement, a full frontal assault on Romanian culture, so to speak. Notably, Romanian authorities are facing significant criticism for letting some of their most prized cultural heritage be sent to a museum with basically no security. Alien hand syndrome is a rare neurological condition in which a person's hand seems to act on its own, performing movements that are independent of the person's conscious intentions. Individuals with AHS often describe feeling as though their hand has developed its own mind, grabbing objects, interfering with tasks, or moving in ways disruptive to their daily life. Because of the striking nature of these symptoms, the syndrome has fascinated both doctors and the general public. However, for people living with the syndrome, it can be distressing and challenging to manage. Historically, the condition we now call alien hand syndrome was first described in medical literature in the early 20th century. A German neurologist, Dr. Kurt Goldstein, detailed a case in 1908 involving a patient whose left hand seemed to act involuntarily. Later, more cases emerged and different subtypes were recognized. Initially, some physicians were skeptical about the nature of these symptoms, and the phenomenon wasn't well documented because of how rare it is. Over time, with better neuroimaging techniques and an improved understanding of brain function, researchers began to confirm that AHS results from specific neurological disruptions. The root cause of alien hand syndrome is damage or disconnection in certain areas of the brain that control voluntary movement. Most commonly, AHS has been seen in individuals who've had brain surgery to treat severe epilepsy. In other cases, strokes, tumors, or infections can harm the regions responsible for integrating sensory and motor signals, leading to the involuntary hand movements characteristic of AHS. There are a few different subtypes of AHS that neurologists often discuss. However, the most frequently identified type is the callosal variety, which is linked to damage in the corpus callosum and usually involves the non-dominant hand. Individuals with AHS often face difficulties carrying out routine tasks. Even something as simple as getting dressed can be a pain because their alien hand might undo their actions or behave contrary to what they intend. Some patients report that their rogue hand might grab onto door frames as they walk by, or even try to interfere with the healthy hand during tasks like eating or writing. Understandably, these symptoms can lead to confusion, frustration, and embarrassment, especially in social settings. The unpredictable nature of the hand's movements can cause anxiety, as sufferers never know when or how their hand might act up. The Groot slang is a cryptid originating from South African folklore. Its name, which translates to Great Snake in Afrikaans, provides a clue to its terrifying reputation as a colossal serpent-like creature said to inhabit the caves and rivers of South Africa. According to legend, when the world was created, the gods made a mistake. They designed a powerful creature with the intelligence of a human and the strength and physical form of a massive serpent. Recognizing the danger this creature posed, they split it into two species, snakes and elephants. However, one original Groot slang managed to escape and took refuge in the Richtersveld, a rugged desert region in South Africa. The Richtersveld, where the creature is said to reside, is home to deep caves and unexplored caverns, such as the legendary Wonder Hole or Bottomless Pit. And yeah, I'm not going to make any jokes here or insert any extra commentary, but I'll repeat where it's said to live: the Wonder Hole or the Bottomless Pit. According to folklore, this enormous cave leads to an underground lake filled with diamonds, guarded fiercely by the Groot slang. Also, I can't be the only one that thinks this sounds exactly like the lore of an optional side boss in a Final Fantasy game. Descriptions of the Groot slang vary, but most accounts agree that it's a massive serpent, sometimes depicted with elements of an elephant, such as tusks or a trunk. It's often said to be anywhere from 40 to 50 feet long, though some tales describe it as even larger, emphasizing its intimidating size and strength. Most reports claim the Groot slang is amphibious, capable of moving with ease through water and on land. One notable account comes from the early 20th century, when European prospectors and explorers ventured into South Africa during the Diamond Rush. Reports of a giant snake guarding diamond mines began to surface, often dismissed as exaggerated tales or warnings to keep outsiders away from sacred or valuable lands. A particularly intriguing account came from an English businessman, Peter Grayson, who disappeared in 1917 while exploring the Richtersveld in search of diamonds. Grayson's party was reportedly attacked, with survivors claiming he was eliminated by a massive serpent, lending further fuel to the Groot slang legend. While skeptics argue that such accounts could easily be explained by natural dangers, like wildlife or harsh conditions, believers see them as evidence of the cryptid's existence. The scientific community largely dismisses the Groot slang as a myth, citing the lack of physical evidence. Further, skeptics point out that giant snakes flopping around in wonder holes sounds like something out of someone's fantasy rather than a scientific account. In modern times, the Groot slang has become something of a deep cut among cryptozoologists. Expeditions to the Richtersveld continue, driven by curiosity and the hope of discovering something extraordinary. Despite the lack of any hard evidence, the Groot slang myth continues to persist. The story of Apache, a reputed female Vietnamese sniper during the Vietnam War, has become one of the Vietnam War's greatest historical mysteries. She's often cited in connection with the legendary U.S. Marine sniper Carlos Hathcock, who claimed to have encountered and ultimately eliminated her. Yet, much debate surrounds whether she was a historical individual or a composite character. While there's widespread anecdotal evidence in Western sources, especially among American veterans, the lack of verifiable Vietnamese records has led some to question her existence. The most cited sources for the Apache story comes from accounts of Carlos Hathcock, who is credited with 93 confirmed slayings during the Vietnam War. Hathcock alleged that Apache was a skilled Viet Cong sniper known for her brutality, including the torture of captured Marines. According to his recollection, this female fighter earned the nickname Apache because of her penchant for cruelly ending American prisoners. Critics point out that first-hand documentation of Apache's existence remains elusive outside of oral testimony and veteran anecdotes. If she really had been a high-profile Viet Cong sniper, there might have been at least some formal records from the North Vietnamese. Historians have noted that the People's Army of Vietnam tended to keep fairly detailed records, including information about decorated snipers and specialized units. However, the Viet Cong, while fighting under the direction of North Vietnam, wasn't officially part of the People's Army of Vietnam. Further, the Viet Cong was composed of regular units, which may have had better record keeping, and guerrilla units, which almost certainly didn't. Skeptics argue that if she were as infamous as described, there should be at least some trace in Vietnamese archives. Further, they argue that if she had existed, she would have been lauded by the North Vietnamese for propaganda purposes. On the other hand, defenders of the historical Apache theory point to the nature of guerrilla warfare. The Viet Cong operated in covert cells, with fighters often using pseudonyms to hide their identities from both the enemy and even their allies, if operational security demanded it. Under such conditions, it's plausible that a female sniper could have operated without leaving an extensive paper trail. Moreover, the massive destruction and confusion that accompanied the Vietnam War might mean that some documentation, if it ever existed, was destroyed or lost. This argument suggests that the absence of evidence is not definitive proof of her non-existence. Also, according to the official narrative, she was a figure deeply feared by the Americans that was slain in action. Any acknowledgement of this would have had the potential to damage North Vietnamese and Viet Cong morale. Beyond the question of official documentation, some argue that cultural and political motives could also explain why Vietnamese records remain silent about an infamous female sniper. In post-war Vietnam, narratives about female fighters often highlighted revolutionary heroism and sacrifice. It's true that women played significant roles, both overt and covert, in the war. However, the story of a female fighter who engaged in torturous behavior might not align with the idealized depiction of female revolutionaries in official account. Hence, it's possible that even if a female sniper committed such acts, her story wouldn't be included in state-sanctioned narratives that emphasize moral righteousness and heroic conduct. There's also the perspective that Apache might have been a symbolic figure, or even an amalgamation of multiple female snipers. Some veterans have suggested that stories about Apache circulated as a means of personifying the fear and anger many Marines felt when confronted with a savage battlefield. War, with its countless rumors and secondhand stories, can inflate real events into powerful legends. It's not uncommon for a single, tangible enemy combatant to become a boogeyman figure, someone who encapsulates the worst fears and horrors of conflict. The psychological impact of facing an adversary reputed to be exceptionally cruel could have enhanced her legend over time. Meanwhile, those who served with Carlos Hathcock remained steadfast that Apache was, in fact, a real person. According to multiple eyewitness accounts, Hathcock became determined to take her out after witnessing the brutal torture she inflicted on captive Marines. In the well-known telling, he successfully eliminated her at a distance of over 700 yards, ending her reign of terror. Further, and importantly, his spotter verified the reality of the event itself, though couldn't directly verify who the woman was. While this anecdote relies heavily on personal testimonies, supporters say the consistency of these accounts lends credibility to the story. Still, from a strictly historical standpoint, anecdotal evidence alone can't serve as conclusive proof. Oral testimonies are subject to memory lapses, exaggerations, and the influence of retelling across decades. Further, Carlos Hathcock is a near-mythic figure in his own right, and people like this do have the tendency to have a reality-altering aura surrounding them. The mystery of Apache boils down to a clash between the fog of war and the rigid demands of historical proof. On one hand, the anecdotal evidence, especially from Carlos Hathcock and various Marine veterans, suggests she was a real, fearsome female Viet Cong sniper. On the other, a lack of verifiable documentation raises legitimate doubts, and it's no secret that war stories can morph into legend over time. Given what we know, there's enough credibility in those first-hand accounts to keep her story alive. Whether Apache was one woman or an amalgamation of multiple female fighters, one thing's clear. The allure of her legend captures the raw and brutal nature of the Vietnam War.